How
do I go live?
All right. So you go to.
I don't have a Facebook.
Me either.
Door a little bit shut, not all the way, but just because of the air conditioning. Thank you.
Live.
Oh.
Start live.
Live?
We're live.
Okay. Again, welcome everyone to the Art Guerra Memorial Survey Show. He would have loved to be here. And boy, did we miss him. Loved art and loved good party, loved art openings. And here is all his work on the walls. We hung it basically chronologically. That's his older work, the weirder stuff, which he did in California. Then he moved to monsters, demons, monsters, and then he did a lot. There's just one painting that represents this phase where he did all these crazy faces, and that's over in the corner there. And apparently his ex-wife Tara was telling me that happened after his father died. He did so many of those faces. And if you get a chance, you should flip through the paper pieces over here. They're all early works, and there's a little bit from all of his different periods. So then he moved into the branch paintings, and apparently he collected those branches for like 20 years. They're incredibly heavy, and they're, yeah. Jody here moved most of them. And then he went into some of these, so then we mixed up the chronological order a little bit. Then we went into some of these lumpy tire rubber and pigment paintings that kind of look rocky. And then from that, he went into tire rubber mixed with glass beads, and that's sort of interspersed here. And then his most recent stuff was solid glass beads, just really beautiful reflective stuff. I'm a little thirsty. I want to say thank you so much to everybody for coming. Thank you so much to Michael David, who has donated this space today for us to have this memorial. Thank you so much to, just everyone. And also I want to say thank you very much to Rebecca, Art's partner, for really being with him the last couple of years. Because he was sick, and she really helped him get through it. We're here today. I'm Saren. Most of you know me. This is my husband Jody. We are Art's business partners, and were for the past 20 years. And it's really hard. We loved him a lot, and it's really hard to not have him be here. But we had lots of adventures together, and good times and bad times, and crazy industrial paint stuff, and just lots of fun. You know, we have this huge warehouse where there are all these crazy cats. Art loved animals. He had so much love. If I had to pick one word to summarize Art, I would just call it passionate. He jumped into everything with love and passion. And I can't believe, he had no fear. He just dove into things. And one of those things was this crazy paint business that he started. And it's amazing. And on our Instagram, so many artists have written testimonials about how it has changed their life and their practice. And after reading all of that, I realized it changed my practice. And I don't think I would paint the way I do today if it weren't for Art and his inventions. He was a crazy mad scientist. He was so creative and just so inventive. And I would say that he was equal parts totally generous and loving and caring to people, as well as being a rapscallion troublemaker. Loved, as Jody said, if he really loved you and you really loved him, he would drive you crazy. Right? You feel me? Some of you out there? And I said to him one day, we got into it over, I don't know, something about packaging or shelving or something. I was like, Art, why? Why are you so difficult? And he said, I'm a Libra. I know. And I was just like, okay. He was so charming. He was so funny. He was so full of stories. He was hilarious. He had so many crazy stories. And after Eduardo also speaks, we're going to open this up to anybody. So if you have crazy stories you want to tell, anything you want to share, please do. I'm going to grab another sip of water. Before and maybe I'll come up with a story later too, but I want to open it up to other people. After, I'll say another thing that Art really loved. He's had a crazy, almost photographic memory for pigments and classical music. It was really amazing. He loved music so much. Also literature. He was a huge, so well read. Xander, his son, just picked up so many boxes from our warehouse filled with books, art books, literature books, and all these albums, so many boxes of albums, classical music, jazz music. Actually, in this book, there's a book over there, and it has a little copy of a cover that Art did for a Miles Davis album, or something like that. It's over there, it's in pink. And there's other interesting things in that book. There's a photo of him that I saw when we moved him out of his loft 20 years ago. There was a publication, and it was Haight-Ashbury Times or something. And in fact, one time Jody said to Art in the very beginning, "Were you like a hippie or something?" And Art was like, "I was the hippie? Hello?" And I saw this publication. It was him and like fully naked, but just not showing everything in the ocean. And that was in this publication he showed that said Haight-Ashbury. So definitely flip through some of the stuff over here because it's really fascinating. So yeah, getting back to music. He loved music. Jody and I in the beginning, we had a metal band. And Art came to all our shows. And he loved it. He was like our biggest fan. So nice. And so at a certain point we had to stop the band. We were like, we have to focus on the business. Art, we can't keep doing this band. And he would bug us to keep playing. We're like, no, we're going to focus on the business. So, band fell apart as bands do. And he would still bug me for years after. You should get back to music. I was like, there's just no time. So anyway, I haven't flown to people in about 15 years, but I'm going to try it for Art. In 1 second, when I get my nurse switch. And I'm also nervous. So it's a song you all know. And if I could get you to join me for the last verse, which is the same as the first verse, that would be amazing, because we're live, and that would be really cool. Okay. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. Was grace that kept us safe and save a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. As for you, Art, love you, you crazy motherfucker! Thank you. Thank you very much. Eduardo's next, and then we'll open this up to anybody.
Gonna set him.
Thank you, sir. I did some notes for this brief talk on Art Guerra. Turns out I'm a relative of him. We randomly met in Tribeca 32 years ago. But I knew I had a relative in New York, however, I never came looking for him. We ended up being very close friends, besides sharing a relative in such a way that his grandfather would be my great-great-grandfather. His son is my uncle, however, I'm his elder, 24 years. I'm like that. Funny enough, I titled this note as the possible bio of Art Guerra. It's kind of hard for me to put all the parts together. Somehow, when I see this show, that's what we see, chips of different moments of his career as an artist. Not a perfectly anthological show, but it was a great surprise for me to discover many things that I never knew he had, or even periods of his artwork that I never saw or couldn't imagine. Someone telling greatly surprising. But yeah, I think Art Guerra was some sort of humanist without dogmas or systems, sort of anarchist, but also someone who tried to augment the synthesis of his chemistry and people research and all the associated investigations. I guess many of us learned through him. I'm not going to say he was the only one, but he was actually carrying a lot of information that I guess we will be using through the years. And I don't know, as he evolved through 6 or 7 decades that he was an artist. His later work, there is not even a subject anymore. There is a series of states. His career goes from the figurative border artist vernacular, kind of the early oil paintings over there, from California, I guess. He's graduated from Stanford University, he was, to abstract material post-minimalist master, which kind of was a fruit of all his research. But he even regarded institutions, religion, even his own one. So much Mexico as the USA. He looking for a universal language. I think he kind of got it in his later work. And early, I'm going to say 5 decades ago, I think he knew where he was going. And stopped at the impulse to represent the exterior of his quotidian surroundings. I think the idea of McLuhan, that the medium is the message, ended up making complete sense in his work. And yeah, he was somebody who chose creativity and imagination above a nominal existence. And that gave him the implicit heroism of somebody who played his life by his own rules, which I enjoyed and appreciate a lot for the many years that I dealt with him and met him. And I guess today's his memorial, originally Bill Page was going to talk. He didn't want to do it. He left there, including But remembering, I guess, is important because we can understand someone better later on. You know, the present sometimes is hard to catch. So this might be the last chance to see his work hanging as it is right now. I hope all this sinks in, and I guess we all appreciate it. I enjoy the guy a lot. He was, anyway, throughout his life. I guess we all know he, between being an Apollonian or a Dionysian guy, he would go for the second always. He enjoyed a good drink and a good music, good food and good friends. We'll miss that part of him. Yeah. Thank you for coming, and the microphone is open. Please don't be shy. We would love to hear anything you may say about it.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I just completely forgot to thank William Norton for hanging this show. He is to watch him work was phenomenal. My assistant manager, Madeline Harlan, helped me select a short list of work to drag in here, and then Nort was like, this here, with the measuring tape, and it was like wild to watch. And so I am incredibly grateful to have had him on board for this project. He did a phenomenal job. And thank you to my two employees here too for doing the social media. Noelle and Aiden, thank you. And please, somebody else come up and say something. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aaron Olshan, and I'm an artist, and I've been a painter all my life, and I go back with art since 1975. That was when I first met art. I was a young art student. I was at SVA, and I was walking down Broome Street one day, and I had seen Rabinovich Guerra Gallery, and I saw some incredibly bad paintings on the wall, and I was intrigued by that, and I was walked into Rabinovich Guerra Gallery, and my purpose in going in was to trash the paintings, how bad they were, and Art was sitting there at the desk, and he liked that. I went off on the paintings, and he was like, oh, I like this guy. So from that moment, we had become friends. And then the 80s had happened, and we had been friends for a while, and we hit every opening, every Soho party, and this was back in the day when there was a place called Wally's in Soho, and Wally's was the place where everyone met up. It was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, and Wally's was the place where you got the party scene. So you'd go to the openings, and then the scene would come in, and you'd find out where all the loft parties were. And Art would be there, and I would be there, and a number of other hardcore Soho people would be there. That's what we would do, and this went on for years. And I became very close with Art, and he was a longtime friend of mine. Then he opened up his store, and of course, I was working on a sculpture series, and I was constantly in the store buying his very famous acrylic 65, which was the thing. You know, if you were anyone, you bought acrylic 65. That was, and then it was like, oh, Art, it's like, what's with this dispersion thing? I'm suspicious. I'm like, I don't really, And so it was like, Art was like, oh, Aaron, don't worry, it's the best thing out there. So I'm like, okay, Art, I'm gonna buy some. So I wound up after 7 years, I spent $50,000 on this sculpture series that took me 7 years to do. But Art was a dear friend of mine, and he would call me up and he would say, hey, you want to come to this Thanksgiving dinner? And I would say, yeah, I want to come. Because all his artist loser friends would be at this, Thanksgiving dinner. Unfortunately, the Thanksgiving dinner, he would make this turkey with chili. And I would say, Art, I'm Jewish. Please don't put chili in the turkey. It gives me heartburn. I don't like my Thanksgiving dinner with chilies in the turkey. But okay, so I went, of course, all his loser artist friends were there, and we were all sitting there at the table, tons of food, tons of, of course, when you went into Art's Law, it was like every artist. It was full of stuff, too much stuff. So many records that you went like, oh my God, too much. A hoarder, this was before the show Hoarders. So it was like, he had too much stuff. But he was, a dear friend of mine, and what happened was that after many decades, with me, he had one little special thing. Art was a prankster. He loved to do pranks. He loved to do practical jokes. So we're at a Soho party, and there's this woman sitting on a couch. She's about 85. I'm about 35. So he comes over to me, goes, I have the woman for you. She's fantastic. So he brings over this 85-year-old and takes my head and tries to push our heads together. And I'm like, Art, don't do that. Please do not do that. Of course, knowing Art, he did it many times before. That's what he was. He was a prankster. He loved to see people have a little stress and conflict and pain. That's what he was. I'm not saying I don't love him, but I know what he was. He wasn't, we can idealize him and we can go, he's gone and we're all sad about it. And we are, but let's just be real. We know what he was. He could be a little hard, he could be stressed, he could cause stress, he could cause pain. And when he did, he really enjoyed it. He enjoyed seeing you like, oh, I would say, Art, after 30 years, don't do that to me. Why do you keep doing that to me? And I could see the glee and joy on his face. He was that, and I'm saying, Art, my friend, listen. I'm like all of you. I'm in pain that he's gone. But let's know what he was. Let's keep it real. He was, like all of us wear many things. And Art was that too. He was my dear friend, and I know him like, it's 46 years. It's really amazing to me, because when I met him, I was a young student at SBA, and the decades went on, and then it went on, and it's like, oh dude, don't die on me. And then you did. So I'm annoyed at him for that. I'm really annoyed at him. for dying on me, because I was supposed to go first so he could be at my memorial and then trash me. You know, I would have been more than happy if he would have been, trashing me. But I miss him, and I'm always going to think about him because he's a special guy, and I want us all to keep it in perspective. We see with the work, we know he was serious, and we know what he was, and Art had his struggles. I remember when he, had no money, and was, oh my God, I have no money. And I said, oh, just like all of us. Oh, you're just like all of us, I have no money. And it's like, and then he said, and then he came up with an idea. I'm going to open up this art store. And he came up with this dispersion idea. And that's Art's thing. So give him the credit where credit is due. And he deserves it. And he deserves all our love and respect. And I'm going to miss him. And I know all of us are going to miss him. And, let's keep him in our hearts. And let's realize that he is one of us. That's all that he is one of us. He ain't no better, and he ain't no worse. So, that's my memorial to a man who I've known for 46 years. Love you, Art. Love you. You're a good man, and I'm going to miss you.
Thank you, Aaron. That was awesome. So he was totally speaking to that little rapscallion thing I hinted at, which was a very large part of Art's personality. And I will just tell a very quick story. My daughter, he used to always traumatize my daughter and go, when she was little, every time he saw her. So one day we drove into the warehouse. We're loading up material in the back of the car. My daughter was sitting in the back seat. And Art's putting stuff in the trunk. And she dives. She had to do, how old was she, Jody? Like 6. She dives into the trunk at him and goes, rah, 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 rah. And he freaks out, hits his head on the roof of the car. And he was like, oh, Jesus, I deserve that. Anybody else have a story?
My first job in New York City.
Yeah, I said good day.
Thank you, Sarah Barker, for getting me a job. My first job in New York City was at Guerra Paint and Pigment. Thanks to Sarah Barker, we were at a party. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
I said good day.
fast forward. It was like one really hot summer day, and Art and I are in the store, and there's no AC in there. The place is it was a shithole. It was a shithole to work in. Shithole. No, it was. Dirty. Come on, you're pouring that anyway. So we're outside, fanning ourselves because there's this. Shut up. It is where it is.
Same place.
Same place. 13. Where's always been. Anyway, Art and I are sitting on the stoop, fanning ourselves, and this big ass limousine pulls up. And it's like, what the fuck? It's East Village. It's 1998 maybe. And then this hot babe comes out with these 2 little kids, and it's like, okay, where are they going? There's no bars here then. And on this big ass guy. And it's Anthony Quinn. And Art loved Anthony Quinn. That was his we both looked at each other. I thought he was dead. And he's coming to the store to buy paint. And he didn't know how to make green. He's like, so how do you make green? So fast forward 5 hours later and $500 later, Anthony Quinn came and went, learned how to make green. But that the best moment for me was sitting on that stoop with Art going, oh fuck, this is hot, it's horrible. And there's Anthony Quinn getting out of a limo to buy paint. There's a million stories, but that's my favorite.
Yay!
Thank you, Carrie. I can just follow that up with recently I had a chat with Erica Renee, and she happened to mention that she sent Anthony Quinn to the store, and I was like, oh yeah, he totally came in. He loved that shit. And she was like, Erica Renee, she's Bill Cosby's daughter. She's a really amazing artist. Yeah, you know who she is. Yeah, you totally know who she is. Yeah, she came in all the time. Anyway, she was the one that sent him there, and then
My teacher's granddaughter.
oh, that too. But then I told her, yeah, he totally came in. He bought lots of paint. She was like, what? He told me that was like, he wasn't into it. I know, and then he came back.
Because he didn't know how to make green.
He bought a lot of stuff, so he was really happy.
What were his paintings like?
I don't know.
Green.
I don't know green.
Not green and then green.
Finally.
Anybody else? More stories. Come.
Be assertive.
It's a long story or a short story.
Get close to the mic.
Am I micing? Because I'm not micing. Good? Better? All right. So I arrived in New York in the fall of 1988. By 89, I was referred to Art Guerra's store to go get paint. And it was very briefly after that I found myself pouring paint into little bottles and listening to him tell all the stories to all the people about how to make paint, what it does, each pigment, how to change their work for a positive way. And I learned so much just sitting there squeezing each pigment into each bottle, learning how each consistency of each pigment was, and listening to Art tell his stories. We later came to find out that we're both Libras, we're both from California, we're both the Kundalini Yoga, we're born 2 days apart on the monthly calendar. And we traveled around the country together, speaking about the stuff. We went out with Sander in a train across the country to our old colleges. And he told me about how he studied at Stanford to be a doctor and then failed to be an artist at Stanford. And that's where he got out his chemistry. That's why that fell into place for paint making, and wanting to be a mural artist, and realizing that stuff's going to fade, and why are we spending all this money to put stuff on a wall that's just going to fade away? So he made it work. He created something totally new, brought it to the world, changed the art world immeasurably, was always what I call ageless and timeless, and definitely a generous soul in every way. He was such a philanthropist that he gave away as much paint as he sold in the early days. And yes, the cash register was a suitcase under the counter. So if you excuse me, let me duck down while I figure out the math. And of course, I'd be so enamored with whatever they were talking about art, I could barely count. But eventually it all grew, and I don't know. There's so much, and yes, thankfully I asked Saren one day at the bar, would she like to join us at the paint store? Yeah. Art somehow had given me, hey, go out and find some people, and then I did Carrie, I think, right? It was the second, yeah. And so, Art said to me when I first started working with him, I thought, to do the business, and he said, no, I want to be friends. And he took me out with Aaron, Bill Page, Rabinovich, and we do every gallery, and I'd come out covered in the paint of the day, and because I chose to work on the weekends so I could just go to the galleries with them afterward. So I came out sticking with paint, and it was amazing. It was an amazing way to get introduced to the New York art world. It was an amazing friendship, and there came a time for me to do my thing and for him to move on, and with his world, and he'd gone to Florida, and he said, oh, by the way, in a week I'm leaving and you're it. And I'm like, oh, really? So always keep up, and we did but minimal. And it was only just because I guess we just knew we were there, and I still feel him with me, and I think I always will. And I thank him deeply for everything he gave me.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was really awesome and really cool to hear that historical background, because Sarah goes way back with art. I was going to say something. It triggered a memory. It's gone. Anybody else? Yeah, come.
Hi. I'm Gordon. I'm a painter. And the reason I'm here is that even I did not know art for very long, but long enough so that I really wasn't ready to not see him anymore at openings, because that's where I did see him. And he was so striking to me at how nice and gentle and welcoming and warm and remembering of me. And over the 5 years or so, I would so often see him. He wouldn't necessarily be right up there, and he'd be back somewhere like that, and I would find him, and it was always fun. But the thing is that my contact with art's world, or I should say, art had a big influence on my life before I even knew it. And you can imagine why that was. You know, going back 20 years, I also made that pilgrimage to, what is it, Avenue B? Or,
13. Between A and B.
Last store. There was always pretty good parking.
That's a good reason.
So this was this period when I only used acrylic, with leaves and stuff, and discovered that acrylic, by the way, the silicon. Yeah, I know about the 65, but the silicon, the flat. Silicon flat. It's a glue. It's a glue. You throw some either sticks or Legos. It's there. And this is this whole and going down there to Art Guerra, to Guerra Paint. I get them mixed up because it's actually an incredible brand. Art Guerra, like the Battle of Art. Yeah. Guerra Paint. It was all kind of mixed together. It was perfect. The feeling walking in the door, kind of like handwritten lists, or at least that's the memory of them. Very handmade, everything. I am sure he never got digitalized. Maybe he did, but I never knew that. Then I find out, he was a runner. He was at Stanford. I know the place. I know where he worked at Stanford. I didn't know he was a runner. There's this whole life that you don't know, and then now I find out, and I just miss him. That's it. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you, Gordon. I remembered what I was going to say before. Sarah talking about how Art came to start the business because he was frustrated with the quality of paint out there, and he just decided, I'm going to make something better and bring it to artists. Was just brave and kind of fearless and maybe crazy, but he was half crazy. And, he just made it happen. And for some reason it triggers this other memory I have of, at one point he went bungee jumping with his son Xander, maybe 15 years ago. And just because, again, no fear. He just decided he was going to do it. And he completely screwed up his back, and he went to his chiropractor, who was older than him, and the chiropractor, his name was Mac, was like, are you fucking crazy? Why did you do that? He was like, it was fun. So, just another story that came to me. yeah, Art had an amazing, rich, colorful life even before he started the business. He was a runner, he had a gallery. Naked Runner, yes, you saw the Naked Running Man. Apparently that was a card that was sold in bookstores in the East Village for a long time. Tara was telling me. What's that? Brooklyn Promenade. Yeah, I was running there. Yeah. So, I don't know, just a total wild man that just dove into life. And we should all just hope to do that, just live life to its fullest all the time, Just be passionate and love and be your best self. Anybody else? Keisha.
Hello. Okay. Just get close.
Can you guys hear me all right? Okay. Louder? Yes. Or closer?
Closer.
Just project.
Let's see. So I'm probably on the younger side of Art's acquaintances, but I worked at Guerra Paint for a couple of years on the same day that Art worked, on Saturdays, with Amelia, and there's a few other younger Art Guerra employees that interacted with Art a whole bunch, but getting to interact with Art every Saturday for a couple of years was really different. Like, I learned so many things from Art that just was there was no one else that behaved like Art in my life. I would show up to work ready to go, like do a bunch of things, and Art would be sitting down and say, "Oh, chill out, why don't we have breakfast and play some jazz?" Or like he would say, "Let's play this Mozart Symphony number 5." And I don't remember the numbers, but I would Google it, and it would come up, and it was like, "Oh, that's the name of a song." And he would say, "Turn it up," and I'd turn it up a little bit, and he'd be like, "Turn it up," and like turn I just never thought that you had to listen to classical music really loud, but he would. And he would tell all these wild stories that I wasn't sure if he made up or not, but I realized that every story was true, from him riding skateboards before skateboards were invented, down a long hill, just a board with wheels, not very good wheels, and nearly dying and not going very fast. Or like running for Reebok and winning, which for a young person, that's incredible to know that someone could compete and win and then do normal things after. Well, kind of normal. It's art, so. Or, let's see, what other crazy stories have you told me? There's like a million stories. Oh!
Yeah, dogs are...
Do you want to tell that one, Madeline?
Gotta do it.
Yeah. Okay, I won't tell that one. I don't know that one very well.
What's that?
Somebody needs to tell this story. I want to know what else.
Oh, a story that I loved to tell all the time was on Saturdays we would get breakfast. There was a diner down the street that since closed because of the pandemic, that sold diner food, pancakes, burgers, everything. But at 12 o'clock, Art would come from there, and then in a couple more hours I would say, "I'm hungry," and he would encourage me to go order something from that diner, and I would get the same thing, like bacon, egg, and cheese, and he would say, "Add they have the
Salsa verde.
best verde?
Salsa verde.
Salsa verde.
Yeah, for sure.
The best salsa verde." So I would ask for the salsa verde, and sometimes they wouldn't have it, but then I found out that they did have it, and Art was having me ask them for the salsa verde for free, and it didn't go with the sandwich, and it wasn't free. And I figured that out because one day I went to get it, and I just had them charge me. And I came back with a sandwich with the salsa verde, and Art said, I was just there, they said they ran out. Because sometimes they just didn't want to like disappoint him and tell him no, but he couldn't have it for free. It was the best salsa verde. It was really good. You can't have that sandwich without it, otherwise it's just a normal diner bacon, egg, and cheese. Yeah. So, yeah. We never got any work done. I mean, we got some, but he would, read the paper, and if the customer came in, he was really great at doing his special thing, helping the customer, and then I would do all the billing and computer things and. And he would lend me books and tell me like interesting facts and like he always had ideas. He would spitball ideas with me. He would say, you know what we should do? We should go into micro pigments or something like that. He would just come up with other crazy ideas, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. I had a good time.
Thank you, Keisha. Okay, Keisha reminded me of my favorite Art Guerra story, which, if the accent I'm going to try to do is, no, it's okay. It's not meant to be insulting to anyone of any culture. It's just the fact that I can't do the accent very well. So, and it's a part of the story. So Art used to always, in fact, my neighbor, just when I told him Art had passed away, he's like, oh my God, I have this memory of driving down Kent Avenue back in the day in his van with a bunch of dogs going to some crazy lounge party. And I said, yes, the van full of dogs. Because Art loved to rescue homeless animals, so he ended up having this huge collection of animals. And he was known for this van full of dogs. So anyway, he was going to a bodega. I think it was on Essex Street. It was, or I don't know, it was a grocery. I think it was a Chinese grocery. And he parks the van and goes in, and all of a sudden, this man comes up to him and says, "Don't look how they're wet." And he says, "What? Don't look how they're wet." "What? Don't look how they're wet." Oh my God, dog drive car get wrecked. And so he runs out, and sure enough, one of the dogs had put the van in gear and driven in a block and crashed it into something. Everybody was okay, the dogs were okay. Fire hydrant? Okay, it hit a fire hydrant. That was one of my favorite stories. He had so many stories. That was a really good one.
That can't be a true story.
Oh, that was true. It's totally true. Yeah, Sarah knows. It's true.
He's a big dog, eh?
Yeah, he had big dogs. Yeah, he was crazy.
They always sat in the front seat when you get out of the car. So you have to tell them they were sitting in the front seat.
See?
It was a crazy stuff as well.
Anybody else? Anybody else have anything to say? Xander? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. This is Art Guerra's son, Xander. Dad, you took bungee jumping.
Hey everybody, this whole show and everything, and just being able to see all of you guys come and just to see really what an influence my father had in this community and how close he was to so many people, how close you all were to him, and even even there's so many people I'm sure that didn't even make it for whatever reason. You know, it means a lot to me, and it's been very, as was said before, gratifying for me to be able to see all of this. And you know, I didn't really prepare anything to say, but you made me think of a story that I have about my dad, which is maybe a little bit of a funny one because it touches on his past and then also a story with me, which is that back when he was living in California as a kid, apparently there was some point where he had like hot rodded this old 30-something Ford with some drag racing engine and this and that, and apparently he took his dad for a ride, which, you know, his dad was very conservative, and he like snapped his dad's neck and freaked him out, and he got his little bit of his dad got redemption on him when I came along and basically did the same thing to him. Because if any of you don't know, I build race cars for a living, so this is like the field that I'm in. So he basically got a taste of his own medicine on that, and he admitted it too. So that's kind of a funny one, you know. But he was a prankster, as mentioned, and I definitely saw my fair share of that. I probably got a little bit of that from him even. I've been known to fuck with my friends. It's kind of funny to me too. But I'm not as bad as him, if I'm honest. But what else could I say? Another funny story that I could say, which is fresh to me, you know, some of the art that you see, like with these branches or even these crazy kind of monster things, I know from when I was younger. And all of this is what he was doing basically in the rest of his life. But if you look at any of this earlier stuff that he has all through here in grad school, or even these paintings that are against this wall here on the hallway side, I had never seen any of this stuff before. So it was actually very crazy for me to be able to look through and see all these things that I literally didn't even know existed. Now, this corner that you see here, or this painting in the corner that you see with my dad naked holding a bottle of wine and tipping his hat, apparently the story with that, and this was told to me by his sister, which is that he did that as his graduation in Stanford. And his father, who is a very conservative man who does not understand this kind of art, came along with one of his conservative friends to see his son's graduation at Stanford. And apparently he really fucking blew his dad's mind, where he was like, oh my God, and just walked out. And I'm sure, you know, that's just another example of him fucking with people, because that's, you know, I share this with him actually, which is that I don't look at the world the way that necessarily everybody does. I like to do things different and I like to innovate, and I think I probably got that from him. Because the reality of it is that he was highly, highly innovative, not only with his industry that he created and his paintings. And the way that he created these third dimensions, and the way that he even went into playing with the way that the light would affect things in his later work and all of this, it truly speaks volumes of how much of an innovator he really was, and how influential, and honestly, like a non-biased perspective of him being my father, like he really was fucking innovating in a way that you just don't see it. So I think that's really cool. You know, and he's always been my father, so I've kind of been submerged in that my whole life. But, you know, to be able to kind of step back and see it like this, it's a reminder to me that that's the reality of it. I wonder what else I could really say. I mean, I definitely didn't prepare anything at all.
He was awesome.
I mean, he was really such a great guy. You know, okay, so he had me at 52. So he's always been an old man my whole life, as far as I've known him. And even I've always known he was probably going to go when I was younger my whole life. In a way, I've been prepared for this, though it doesn't make it any easier. And, you know, something to be said about that is, you know, maybe not always, but with age does tend to come wisdom. And, you know, he is such a wise guy. And I really like to think that it was some benefit for me to be able to have such a wise guy teach me all the things that he did when I was younger. Because truly he had words of wisdom for everything. I may not have really realized how true that was earlier on, because it's just what I was exposed to. But the reality is that he views the world in a very mature and advanced way, and he's just seen so much. And I'm sure you guys all recognize that with all the interactions that you've had. That's one of the things that makes him unique, is that he really does just have this ability to be himself, not put up his ego and
Art Guerra.
and yeah, I mean, it's been so great to be able to have conversations with each of you individually, some of who I've met before, some who I haven't. And just, you know, it's so fulfilling really to be able to hear all of this and see how touched everybody has been by everything. And, you know, I imagine that, you know, he would be so happy to see everybody here like this. And, you ultimately, this is definitely a beautiful thing. I really want to thank you guys also for the work that you did. And I forget the owner of this studio, but I'll thank him also. Michael David. Is he here?
No, he's in Massachusetts.
I thought I didn't see him. Okay. What else could I say? I think that's it, guys. We've said so many. If anybody else wants to come up, though, please feel free to.
To me. Okay. Thank you. What? What? You're going to say something? Okay. Oh, Jody's going to say
Sorry, I can't do it.
Jody's emotional. So I'm gonna, we'll get towards wrapping this up unless somebody else wants to say something. I will give you one more story. So we saw Art, I guess it was the day before he died. We went to the hospital. He was unconscious. And I talked to him for a while. I held his hand. I was talking in his ear. Telling him that Xander was on a plane, he was coming, and just talked to him about business and how many people were concerned and caring, and writing us messages on social media, and everyone loved him. And he, God damn it, he started going like this. And he opened his eyes. He came to. He squeezed my hand. And then Jody squeezed his hand, and he had a bandage on his hand, and he yanked his hand away. And I swear to God, because he had a mask on, so he couldn't speak. But I swear I heard him say, "Damn!" And the corners of his mouth raised a little, so he smiled and said, "Damn." And then Jody said, "Oh my God, Art, I'm so sorry. That's the last time I will ever hurt you." And so that's leading into a story, which. These guys had all these crazy industrial paint experiences together. And in the early days, we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. We'd go do these industrial trash runs. Not me, they would. And they would rent a truck, take all of our trash, which is just tons of paint trash, big barrels. We'd let it build up in the yard of the warehouse until we didn't have any room. And then they'd go rent a truck. They'd fill the truck, and they'd drive to this huge waste transfer station deep in Brooklyn, which I guess is as big as how many football fields? 7? I don't know. This is just a giant indoor trash heap. And they would back the truck up and hold their breath and get rid of this trash as fast as they could. And they would, whenever they finished these trips, they would tell me about it and be like, "Oh my God, such hell, such hell." And I guess there were these huge trucks with 25-foot tires. Yeah, just scooping trash. I mean, you can imagine, it's just this totally crazy scene. So they're getting rid of the trash, and Jody's kind of a big dude, so he grabs a bag of trash, and he goes like this to throw it out, and it hits Art square in the chest, and Art goes flying back into the spooge, and I was like, "Oh!" And Jody was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." So that's what he was referring to when he was like, "I'll never hurt you again." And there were other times too, because he doesn't know his own strength. But anyway, so we got to, and we relived that story with him, and we had a real, it was as good as it could have been, our last time with Art. And so we just told him how much we loved him, and told him Xander was on the plane, he was going to get there, and he did, and, it went as well as it could have gone. I guess that's how I'm going to wrap it up, if anybody else wants to say anything.
That's since she touched on that subject. So as she said, I flew out here because, so his dementia had kind of been declining over the last number of years. Basically, in anything 4 years or more recent, he's not really completely himself. But in the last couple weeks, he kind of stopped talking and stopped functioning, and then he was in the ICU, and that's when I came. I flew out from California, which is where I live. And I saw him, and then the next morning he passed. So you could say perhaps that maybe he needed to see me or something. And even though he was unresponsive, he was with some level of reaction, especially when I first arrived, clearly fucking panicking. I mean, you could see it. I mean, he was unable to really do much other than kind of groan, and his heartbeat went up. And I kind of I sat and talked to him and tried to help him just, feel relaxed and just let go, because the reality of it is that his body is done. And it's time for his soul to move on, perhaps into another body or whatever the fuck happens. But, that was really interesting. And you mentioned that, so I thought I'd share that with you guys, is that happened. Yeah, that was definitely something.
It's like incredibly beautiful that he waited for you and you were able to have that closure with him and he got that closure with you. I think it was amazing, because I don't think, when he woke up for us, I don't think he knew he was dying. I think he just thought he was in the hospital again. So it's great that it went as well as it could have gone. It was really beautiful.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's nothing easy about having somebody that you hear about die, but the reality is that we all fucking die as we were born. So, you have to face that as a reality of life. And he lived a fucking good one.
He lived an amazing life, rich, full life, colorful.
I will miss.
Gentle giant, this one.